I think it's just that you have to interact with other people, and it's so essential to have an idea of what's greater than us and what brings us together. And my education and K through 12, I couldn't have done it any better. Just understanding the eternal things.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Memoria Press.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud, and I am here with Paul Schaefer and two new guests, Mr. August Rothpletz and Mr. Danny Sweeney. Welcome. So glad to have you. We are here to do an episode I've been wanting to do for a long time, to tackle the question, is a classical education practical? And that's why we have our two recent Highlands Latin School grads, August and Danny, to help us answer that question. They're here because they took very different paths after high school. So we're hoping to answer that question from several different angles. But before we get to that, I'd like to hear just a little bit about the both of you. August and Danny, you finished high school a few years ago. Where are you now? August, we'll start with you.
So I graduated Highlands Latin School in 2022, and I am currently a senior at Baylor University studying computer science. So I'll be graduating in May and trying to find a job in software development after that. Outside of all the school and the studies, I've been really involved with the Baylor Men's Choir, actually. That's been a really fun source of community and singing for me. I've actually had a bit of success as their social media manager in years past, and I am organizing a mission trip to Kenya with the group for the coming summer. Beyond that, I'm doing a bit of research related to virtual reality, and just focusing on school at Baylor right now.
That's awesome.
Get a load of this guy.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
That's
August.
great.
Okay, Danny.
I graduated in 2024, I believe, if I can remember ever. I am now at the College of St. Joseph the Worker, a new program that is oriented around the trades, like as if it were a night school, but they've made it into a college as well by offering a Catholic studies degree. So I'm studying Catholic philosophy while also being taught about the trades. And in the first year, I'm a sophomore now, I studied plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and carpentry, and now I was given the option to choose my second year, and I chose plumbing. So I'm now a plumbing student, as well as studying all the other the Catholic studies options that they've given me. So I'm kind of getting a continuation of my HLS education while also completely switching over to a blue collar kind of the world of blue collar. So, here we are. Yeah.
Jack of all the trades and philosophy.
Hopefully, I can only hope.
Right.
Yeah. So at this point, you're leaving the HVAC and carpentry and electrical kind of behind.
Exactly.
So the next couple of years,
they made us choose. Yes.
All the apprenticeship and all that stuff.
It's all focused on plumbing. Yes. So that way I can actually leave with a journeyman's license by the time I've graduated. So hopefully it works out that way. We'll see what happens. I could have
used you on the farm about a week ago.
Yes. So now it's transitioning to almost like an apprenticeship.
Yes, ma'am.
Something official. Okay.
Exactly. That's fantastic. That's exactly how they have it. They're working through the Apprenticeship Ohio. So it's in Steubenville, Ohio. They have a deal with the government that they will offer us the same apprenticeship status or whatever, journeyman's or whatever it is that any normal, person who had just left and not gone to college would have. And I'm also getting this degree at the same time. So it's really a blessing. It's amazing. So I get to have both, the best of both worlds, really. So
that's really cool. Okay.
And I assume you want to start your own business?
Absolutely.
Like that down the line?
That would be the goal. Yeah. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you both have some really exciting things going on in your life after high school. That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
I love that. Okay. Well, to get to know you even better, we're going to answer the question, what you've been reading. And I'll let you think on that. Paul, you always know this question's coming.
I do, but I haven't done any reading. Christmas is tough. You have family, not actually, whether you have time to read or even time to listen to a book.
Yeah.
But the last time we were on this show, Tanya mentioned that Fleur had given us all recommendations of what to read, and I somehow totally missed that email. And I went back and looked, and so she recommended to me Trust by Hernan Diaz. Apparently it won the Pulitzer a couple years ago. And she she hasn't told me what she thought about it. It's sort of like what I think she wants to discuss it in order to kind of figure out what we think about it.
Oh.
So it's kind of one of those wide open ones.
Yeah.
So I have it on Audible. It's the next thing I'm listening to. I asked her, I said, is it something I can listen to, or do I need to like sit down and read it? And she said, oh no, you can listen to it. Like, I totally get it. So that's the plan. I'm putting aside that third book of the Three Musketeers. Can't remember the name of it. Putting that aside, I'm going to go listen to Trust. I'll come back to Dumas later when I need a kick in the pants for some adventure.
Got it. And thanks, Fleur. She recommended a book to me too, and I looked it up the other day, and it looks fantastic. It won awards too, so maybe in the new year. But okay, how about you guys, Danny?
I'm a huge fan of Peter Kraft because he kind of shared my journey a little bit through the Anglican Church and then over to Catholicism. So I actually picked up a book that I just saw at someone else's house the other day, and I asked to borrow it because I left it at her house. It's called oh boy, The Questions You Were Too Scared to Ask About Heaven.
Ooh.
And I started reading, and of course it's very like controversial to me. It's like we're not supposed to know. There's all the scripture about we're not supposed to know about heaven. Don't ask the questions. Just do what Jesus said. And of course it's very true. But Peter Kraft has an excellent way of going about really delving into what humanity is thinking about and what we are aiming for as Christians. What are we going towards? So he can kind of dance around that without being heretical or something, or defining what heaven may actually be. So I'm very invested in that, and I don't even have the book right now, but I got to get it back. Next time I see them, I'm going to get it back.
That's so interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, how about you, August?
Well, I've been a little bit less philosophical than Danny. Okay. I've been reading Oathbreaker, which is the third book in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay.
Which highly recommend Brandon Sanderson if you haven't heard of him. He's kind of, in a lot of ways, the king of modern fantasy, but the Stormlight Archive is kind of his magnum opus. He spent, I think, around 5 or 10 years before he even started writing it, just developing different cultures and religions and flora and fauna that make up his world. And so it feels like very real and believable because all of these characters' actions are, the choices they make are motivated by their cultural and religious backgrounds and, these made up religions and cultures.
It's all internally consistent.
Yes, it is. And so that makes it very believable. And then beyond that, there's a lot of great themes about it. Like, there's a kind of a rising king or I guess a high nobleman who's kind of the strong guy who's able to take control and leadership during a crisis, and he doesn't want to usurp power from his nephew who's the king, but the king isn't really, he's not a bad king, but he's not really strong enough to take control during crisis, and what to do when different factions that you deeply care about are at conflict with each other, and all sorts of great things like that.
That's really good. And it's a series. It's part of a series.
It is a series. It's the third. The one I'm on is the third book in the series, but so far they've all been quite good. Although it's a bit of a long undertaking. They're all 1,000-page books. But
is it a trilogy? Or are there more books after the third?
I believe there's currently 5 or 6 out.
Oh, and he's still writing.
And he's still writing them.
Okay,
very nice.
Awesome.
I've been told.
Go ahead.
That I need more fiction in my life, so I think that's great. Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
It's not a small undertaking, but it's a good one.
Yeah, and I love. There's something to love about a long series because when you're invested, you're invested.
Absolutely.
And then when you finish it, you kind of feel like you're still in that world. Do you ever finish a book and you start to think about the characters and you're like, oh, they don't exist. What am I doing?
When I binge read like 24 books and in a series, and he's still writing, but I just now, when I could just go one after the other, it was great. And now I get like one maybe a year or one every 2 years, and it's awful. Like, because the series continues, but I just want to binge it. Like when I'm invested, that's the only thing I want to read.
24.
Or 24. Yeah, it was Joe Pickett novels. I don't know that I should recommend those. They're kind of gruesome. I mean, it's Game Warden in Wyoming. But it's like, I really enjoyed it because it's very outdoorsy. The setting's beautiful. They're kind of mystery-ish sort of novels too. But when I was like, there's 20, I'll never get through these. And I just went through them so fast. And then I was like, I know, I want us to live in that world, but there's no more for me.
He's not there anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose the other nice thing about a long book is it's hard to binge and zoom through the whole thing.
If it's 1,000 pages.
That and
that's true.
The character development takes time. It's not like an action movie where they're struggling with this thing and then Uncle Ben gives them a pep talk and all their problems are healed.
That's true.
It takes time and effort for them to overcome their difficulties.
That's right.
It really is like life, because definitely when you're reading something longer, it keeps you involved. And as long as it's good, it sounds like you're enjoying that. It keeps you away from the social media and the other things of this world that are so fast and they're so and they're just, it doesn't feel right, and to be involved in something that's really drawn out and really epic. It's like, that is how our life is structured. It's like, that's how we should be reading, how we should be living. It's so much better. So
that's true.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, Danny and August, this is a part of the show where we typically answer a listener question. We've actually got two that I think are kind of like two different sides of the same coin. So I want to give you these questions, and then we're going to kind of build off of those the rest of our episode. And they all center around our theme of, is classical education practical? So we got an email at podcast@memoriapress.com from Emily. Emily's an American, and she says she's married to a Kiwi, and they've lived in New Zealand for 10 years now. She says that New Zealand is a practical culture, and it's extremely common for kids to leave school at 16 and start a trade. She says, I have not met one person my age who got a liberal arts degree. I didn't know that. She says her husband is a welder and a fabricator, so he's also in a trade. And she says, do you have any advice on how to convince him, her husband, or others in her life that classical education is not a waste of time? She says, I'm just not sure how to convey this to others without sounding like a pretentious snob.
That's great.
Yeah, she says, I would be perfectly happy if my son grows up to drive a tractor like his dad. But wouldn't a classical education still be valuable, even if that's what he decides to do? So Emily, thanks for the question. We get questions like that a lot, and I hope today's show answers it. The second question we have is from Joel. It's a little bit different, but sort of similar. Joel's in Australia, and he says, I love listening to your podcast and the compelling vision of education you put forth. However, I still have some reservations. There are several content areas and skills and so on that contemporary educators tend to see as important, which I don't see fit into the classical model of education. He goes on to ask if we incorporate newer disciplines into our educational framework, because he's worried that it might not prepare students who are thinking of careers in media or digital literacy or entrepreneurship. So he says, how do you justify not including some of those technical things into your school that might be vital in helping them navigate the modern world? So is it practical for students who go into any number of paths for their future? And Danny, before we talk to Danny and August about the paths they've chosen, I want to know from you, when parents ask if this is practical, what do you think is underneath that question? Is it like an underlying fear? Yeah.
Well, I mean, parents want to make sure that their children will be able to move out of their basements, right? I mean, fundamentally.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know if either one of you have been kicked out of your homes yet. I was talking to a mom and she's like, what they said, as soon as your child goes off to college, you shouldn't like take away their room. But we did it right immediately. Like we had another child that wanted the room,
it's turned into an office now. Sorry.
I think parents are concerned about that because I mean, that's sort of like every adult's, like, I mean, even you look at animals, right? Like birds, they've got to push the baby bird out of the nest, make it fly, right? It's not that they don't love them. It's that we have to make sure that you can fly on your own two wings. Mm-hmm. And so I think the concern is, if you're spending at least 18 years, if not 22, 26, however many years in educating, you should be, when that period of your life is done, you should be able to support yourself. I think that's the concern. And I don't think this concern actually was as prevalent back when the standard was you get an 8th grade education. Right? Because, okay, yeah, it makes sense. You're going to spend 12, 14 years of your life. You're not competent to do anything beyond that. But people could go out and make decent money from 14 to 18, right? Especially if that's the economy that the society supports. I remember listening to a radio show from Ronald Reagan, and he said, he paid for his college by every summer through high school. He worked and he saved that money. He had enough money to pay for college. Right.
Good luck doing that now.
Right. Right.
Right.
But it used to be more of a standard thing that would happen. Now, if we're saying, okay, we're giving our kids sort of these privileged 20 years, we want to make sure that they're coming out of those 20 years ready to support themselves and be ready to start a family, right? Like right away, because, people used to get married when 15, 16, 18, right? 20. And if you're not even done being educated by 22,
delays some decisions.
Plus, a classical education is just expensive. If you go to a private classical school like I did, then that's a monetary cost. And
that's right.
If you homeschool, then that's a huge investment of time and energy on the part of the parent. And so, either way you cut it, it's going to be more expensive than public schooling. And so I'm sure a lot of people want to make sure, okay, this is worth it. And my kid's going to get something valuable out of this and not be, not get to college or whatever's next and have the other kids who went to public school running around them in circles in math and science and all of that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, to add to that, I would say that I don't know what the public schooling system is like in New Zealand, but if you are going to send your child to public school or just anyways, I feel like at least in America, public schooling doesn't prepare you either. I mean, the versus classical education. So if you it's going to be an investment, it's going to be monetary, whether monetary or time. But if you're going on the basis of he's not prepared to take on the world, whether technologically or physically, he's going to be just as ill prepared by the public school system. So if we look at it that way, it's nobody's winning. The government's not winning. We're not winning if that's what you're going to argue. So I think we'll go deeper into why classical education obviously is more valuable, but I definitely don't think the public school is going to prepare him more for the world. Even with the iPads or whatever they may have, no way. It's not. Yeah. So, but that's just my opinion.
Well, it's helpful. And Danny, I want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about why you chose what you chose. You are in school, but you chose a kind of like a hybrid path.
Yes. Yeah.
And what appealed to you about that, and where have you seen even what you learned in high school be helpful where you are now?
Yeah. So I originally came from my house very, very blessed. We've always had, enough money to get by, very much good to go. It's never been a worry to be, how am I going to save money by fixing this or doing whatever. My dad is a very successful white collar, he's an investment banker. I love him to death. He's taught me everything I know, but I saw his life and my brother now too works for him and they enjoy it. I really couldn't bring myself to say, hey, I'm going to go get my degree and be a finance bro and go end up just doing the same thing the rest of my life. Of course, and I will be doing the same thing the rest of my life, whatever I choose, but I needed to move around. I mean, I feel like I'm an active person. And of course, I think my family is too. I think my dad is too. But of course, he's okay with, sitting in front of the screen and talking with people. And that's just what it is. I must move about and be outside and be in wherever it is, other people's homes or whatever. And I really, my background's completely white collar. I never worked any construction jobs until my junior year of high school or anything. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I have no idea. Some of this stuff, I still have no idea how any of it works, but I love it. It's great. I mean, I'm learning this whole new world, and I'm so glad I chose it. So out of high school, that was kind of my idea. I was I just took a leap, and that being the first year of that college, it was a huge gamble, but they offered the philosophical side of it. And of course, I had just come from Highlands Latin School, and I was yes, of course. And I've just continued building on the, mental / spiritual side of it as well as the physical. So I'm thrilled with that. That is absolutely the best choice I could have made. Yeah.
And what would you say to someone who might say, but if my child is going to be a welder or drive a tractor
or a plumber,
why does he need to read Homer? Why does he need to go through translating Caesar?
Oh my goodness.
Because you did all those
That's
things.
so great. Yeah. I love I think this is something that we've lost. I think we used to have this. I think everyone used to go through some form of classical education, like reading these great authors, no matter what they did. I really think like the schooling systems nowadays have just failed us. I think people used to just know that stuff regardless of what job you had, and people were seen as smarter, seen as more wise, more to offer. I think we need to go back to that, and I think those authors give so much light, not just to like how to live, but Christian, like they build on top of what Christ has given us. I mean, it's amazing. Their beautiful literature is just absolutely. That's how God intended it to be. I think it's something we need to have to help us think, help us read, help us express our faith to other people, and kind of just be able to interact with people in a way that where it's not just like, oh, give me your money and I'm going to fix this. Give me your money and that's it. It's like I really love the fact that I can have a really high level conversation with somebody and also fix their pipe. I can have a good conversation with them about, something they learned that's, a lot more spiritual. So yeah, absolutely.
That's good, Annie. Thank you. And August, your path has looked pretty different from that on the surface, but I'd be curious to know, since I think maybe a lot of us think the technical professions seem to be like up to the minute skills. Do you feel like, even though your field is changing constantly, did you miss out by not having, I don't know, some of the more like constant technical practice directly in the classroom? Do you feel like you were behind?
Yeah. So to be honest, when I got to college, in my, introductory to computer science classes, I didn't feel behind. I felt ahead. But to be honest, I don't think that's really because of the education I received in the classroom, but because I was very proactive about teaching myself programming and a lot of this technology outside of it. I was supplementing a lot of that myself. I kind of got into computer science during COVID pandemic, just, locked in the house, bored. What am I going to do? I know I'll teach myself how to make video games. And so, that's what I did. And maybe I have a bit more of a kind of proactive self-learning kind of mindset that maybe not everyone has. And that's okay. But I guess what I will say is that, my classical education challenged me in a lot of unique ways. And, throughout my time at Highlands Latin School, I took on a lot of unique challenges, like learning all 70 stanzas of Horatius at the bridge.
Yes.
And so because, through that, I learned how to learn. I learned how to memorize facts quickly so that the memorization of the facts isn't, that's not the hard part or the issue. It's, all of the logic and all of that stuff. And so because of that, I was like, oh, I've done this other hard thing that required some difficult learning. I can go ahead and apply this. To be fully honest, what I think, what would maybe have been nice is that, a lot of the computer science stuff requires some kind of logical thinking that isn't the same kind of, input A, output B, kind of memorization of facts that I think a lot of my classical classes were. But, that what was really valuable there was that learning how to learn. And so because of that, as you mentioned, computer science especially is a very fast moving environment. And it's one that you have to be a student for life, constantly learning new technologies, new languages. And because I have that background where I've learned how to learn, I'm able to do that easily and keep up with not too much effort, relatively, I think.
Yeah. I think that that's helpful, because when Joel asks about like, is it relevant, or are we preparing students to navigate the modern world? I mean, for his kids, they may be doing jobs we don't even know exist yet right now, right? Like in 10 or 20 years. But to your point, if you have a foundation that's helped you understand how to solve problems and to understand that you are capable and you can do hard things, and to your point about being self-motivated to learn the aspects of a field that are interesting to you, those things put together can take you a really long way, even if you didn't have maybe like a coding class in high school.
For sure. I mean, I think that some kind of computer literacy is a very important skill for everyone to have in this day and age. And so maybe it's something that could be cool to explore, in my opinion.
Sure.
But that's something that I was also able to learn by myself.
Well, and I recall when I was in high school, I was in charge of the school's like computer lab network, and the server died one day, and I was like, I'm the only one around to fix it. And so I installed Windows Server on a different computer, opened up Windows Server Help, and printed it out. This is before I had access to internet. And I should have had, that's a long story. But anyway, we had no internet in school. And I printed it out. And as I walked from class to class, I just read Windows Server Help. That's how I learned what DHCP was, DNS, how all that fit together. And then it was, trial and error. But to August's point, like I had the backgrounds in Latin and Greek and Spanish, trying to figure out what the words mean, how that applies to something. Those were all skills I had. So it wasn't exactly. People ask me like, "Where'd you learn all this?" Well, I just printed out Server Help and I read it. Right? I mean, you classical students walk out with a strong ability to read, to comprehend, and to then apply whatever they learn from that into whatever other situation they have, which are the life skills that you're going to need in any kind of job.
No, for sure. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges for people who are becoming computer scientists is learning that kind of flexibility and linear flow of logic through your head. And it sounds like you had exactly that when solving those issues.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful, because Paul, you were classically educated and you were in Danny and August's life stage at one point, but now you run a farm. You basically run a company. Danny's working with his hands. August is coding, building apps, and doing tech, all kinds of things. But it doesn't sound like the time that it took to learn Latin, to learn logic, to read all the many books and novels that you read, learn about art history. It doesn't sound like that made you less connected or less grounded or less skilled to be able to tackle learning something big and new, like going to trade school, like going to college, like starting a business, like Dancing Acres Farms. So did you feel like when you started those new things that you were starting behind, or maybe like less equipped?
I absolutely was. That's the problem. So I think I would just speak to what both of them just said. As for me, I definitely was like completely unequipped. As I said before, I'd never worked construction until my junior year of high school. But what I was able to do was get in there, read the books, and look at something as simple as instructions for like putting something together and say, hey, that's pretty easy to understand. And people will come and ask me like, what does this mean, or how? And I'm like, guys, I barely know how to do this. So they're like, look, like this is something that's kind of confusing us or whatever. And I'm able to use my logical reasoning or whatever to figure something out, almost like it's a small math problem or something. And I, again, like not knowing anything really about the blue collar side of things, I was able to figure out a lot of it, like the framework of it, very quickly last year because of what HLS had offered to me. And that was all classical education, very little computer work. I mean, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of all of that. Like you guys are way over my head right now. Like that's crazy. But obviously everyone needs to know how to do all that stuff. And I was not given very much training, but it's really like at least for me, a simple blue collar man. Like I'm not programming or whatever, but I'm able to get on my computer and do certain things, that may have been harder for someone else to figure out just because I can think through it logically. So.
But your experience getting into the trades coming out of classical education was, I have no idea about any of this.
Yes.
But within 6 months, a year, you're very confident in
absolutely.
it. And you've got also companions coming to you asking you how I'm doing things. I think that's kind of important to point out, right? Because classical education is not intending to train. We had the one listener who wrote it like, I'm totally fine with my son sitting on a tractor like his dad does, right? Mm-hmm. We're not training you to sit on a tractor, right? We're training you to have foundational skills that if what you decide to do later on is sit on a tractor, you can figure out how that tractor works very quickly and master that.
For sure.
Yeah, and this stuff translates to leadership as well. I mean, it's really, whether August wants to start his own company or I do or whatever happens in our future, we'll be able to, again, interact with people in a way that is helpful, and that is they'll come to you and ask you questions, whatever it may be. You can really be a leader of men, like to the best of your ability, and help people towards their goals. So that's a huge part of it, is being able to see others and help them. So
yeah, and as I said, when I was entering college, I was a bit ahead of the curve in that I had done a lot of self-learning before that and had built some projects and whatnot. But even if that hadn't been the case, I'm sure I would have been fine, because when I was teaching myself all of that, I didn't have any professors I could ask questions to. Neither of my parents are in technology or STEM fields. I just had, internet tutorials and help forums to look at. And so, just kind of pretty much the same thing as you printing out all of the Windows help guides is, because of, my background, I was able to figure it out and then experiment and slowly build up my skills from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, well, and I think Danny's point about also becoming a leader of men, right? Like you have two young men who are not even out of college, who are both talking about, in some ways, wanting to be entrepreneurs. I'm not sure if August, you said that on the air, but you said that before we got on the air. And one thing that we really try to hammer in classical education is understanding virtue and vice, the causes of an action, the consequences of an action, but also like being part of a society, being a citizen of a society. And, we need more people like that, right? More people that are willing to say, I'm going to go take a risk, start something, and they're going to end up giving the jobs to other people, right? Because as you build something, then you go hire somebody to help you out. You can train them. They can go do their own thing, right? But they're not thinking just, I need to know how to, whatever it is, put the pipes together so that I can get a job. Like their dreams are bigger. Their concept of what the world is bigger, because for one, like what they were learning about was not, they weren't reading Captain Underpants. They were reading the Iliad, right? And learning about people sacrificing themselves for the good of their city and leaving their wife and their child, and dying in order to protect their family because their brother went and stole the most beautiful woman in the world. Right? Like, there's so much more that's presented in those stories than just, I'd read this old dusty story, right? Like it's given them some form of a vision of of sort of the self-sacrifice and the drive that really is a virtuous thing.
Yeah. I really appreciate how my education has had such a strong ethical and moral emphasis. And I think that has definitely shaped my own perception and how much those things matter to me as well. And, as you were saying about entrepreneurs and whatnot, I think it's really important that, we have leaders and entrepreneurs who have a really strong ethical and moral background and aren't going to, cheat or mess around with their taxes or screw their employees, not just because, they're going to get in trouble with the government or with unions or anything like that, but because they love people and they love doing what is right, because that's simply what you do.
Yeah. And I think that is a really beautiful and kind of roundabout way to answer both the pointed questions with Emily and Joel, because one of Joel's questions is, if you don't spend time teaching children in the classroom tech skills, why not? And I think maybe our answer is we really value time on task with students, and we find that the content we put before them is much more formative to their souls long term than maybe how to learn AI. Or, do you know what I mean? Is that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And the reality is, will it help Danny to be able to type at 60 words a minute? Yes, if he goes and starts a plumbing company, he may be able to get a quote out faster out the door. Right. But the reality is, less and less people are typing these days, right? Because you can just have the AI generate it for you, or you do speech to text or whatever. And so, had you spent the time on the typing skill, would that currently help Danny? Yes. In 10 years, will it be of a service to Danny? Probably not. And, but also Danny could go spend 2 weeks and do it himself in a much more efficient way than that happens in a school. Right.
Of course.
Go ahead.
I honestly disagree a little bit in that if Danny's looking to go into something where he's going to be typing, then, I think it's a wonderful thing for Danny to go explore, how to figure out how to type or do whatever it is else that interests him. I don't think there's any reason to wait until you finish high school or anything like that to do so. However, that shouldn't come at the cost of a lot of that formative education.
Right, but the question is, does every child in the high school need it? And is that time, you might have personally actually learned less in a coding class in the time you dedicated to it.
Sure.
Because it is just by definition less efficient in a classroom because you have this group as opposed to individually. And so both of you all coming out of the same school have felt this kind of career is where I will fit better than this other kind of career. And yet coming out of the same school, you can both flourish in those careers because you kind of have that base, and we haven't, sure. Maybe there's some, and this is why we, I don't know. We may be putting in a typing class. I think Tanya mentioned that, but for years it was, you can learn to type over the summer, and we would recommend that over a summer, like do that because it is a decent skill. But also I remember the typing classes that I had as, in school. And it was a big fat waste of time. Big fat waste of time, right? And that's the challenge, is not like, and in classical education really does not rise and fall on the typing class, right? But what it is, it's the sort of the bigger principled question of, are we training for a vocation, right? We're not a welding school. We're not a farming school. We are a generalized school that's going to give you human skills that you can apply everywhere.
Right.
And that makes me think of Emily's question, or her concern when she says, I don't want to be a pretentious snob when I talk to people about this. And I think, Emily, hopefully some of the conversations, what August and Danny and Paul have just shared about their experience and about what we're aiming to do, informing people to go out and be prepared no matter what path they take. Maybe there's a way to say that isn't pretentious and snobby. And I certainly think there's a way to do that.
It's hard nowadays because everyone gets offended by everything. But I think you mentioned the soul a little while ago. And of course, that's just like the essential part of Highlands Latin School or classical education, is that you're going to get maybe it's not even Christian. I don't know how you do it without a Christian background to it, but it just getting any idea of there is something more than going into the world and making money and, living your best life or, doing what it's all about you, everything, I just like you mentioned about the Iliad and Odyssey being about sacrifice and everything. That is obviously how humans just have been for all of our history. Even if you have no idea of Christ, or if you just deny that openly, you're still going to sacrifice for your kids or do for your wife or whoever it may be. Hopefully you're not just permanently living by yourself and going to be happy with it unless you're a monk of some sort. But I think it's just that you have to interact with other people, and it's so essential to have an idea of what's greater than us and what brings us together. And my education and K through 12, I couldn't have done it any better. Just understanding the eternal things, whatever they may be, for someone who may not be Christian, obviously. That's just, you're going to come out more well-rounded, it's just, you're not going to be totally devoted to yourself. So
it seems to me a lot of what we're getting at is that, learning all of these technical skills isn't necessarily in conflict with the classical education, but is potentially, complementary to it. And that, a lot of what we're doing here at Memoria Press focuses on those like really big picture formative things of life and philosophy and history that it's good for every student to learn. And then, but that there's also opportunities for people to go off on their own and explore their own interests. Like, for example, at Highlands Latin School, do we meet 5 days a week?
Nope.
No, we don't have school on Mondays. And so you can take that time and you can learn how to program. You can go learn carpentry. You can learn plumbing. You can, learn genome sequencing, whatever you like.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, and I don't know if I should say this on the air, but
let it out, Paul.
I mean, one thought that's just been brewing in my mind, and I actually passed it by Jason Bohr the other day at the Christmas party, is that, because we do like drama camp in the summer, right? And we have activities sort of outside of your regular academics. And I thought we should have, and they have soccer camp in the summer. We should have farm camp. And, the students can learn to butcher chickens, plant vegetables, castrate calves. I mean, it could be anything, right?
Get straight to it.
I just, it's what needs to happen that time of year.
Does.
And so, which I would see as being a strong, strongly connected to classical education, but also just a really great complement to give people like Danny a chance to work with his hands. Yeah. People like August a chance to be like, oh, there's something out here besides a computer, right? No, I mean, I know you knew that, but there are kids that go to classical schools whose parents allow them to be on screens all the time outside of school.
Yeah.
Right. And just to give them an opportunity to work with their hands, and maybe they say that's really not my thing. That's fine, but we're not going to take school days away from that. But it might be something where the school gives them an opportunity outside of the school days to say, hey, here's a few things that I had mentioned at one point to a friend. Like, I'd love to get a mobile corral and bring it in with a couple of pregnant cows so that the calves could be born here and the kids could see it. And then I mentioned that friend then mentioned it to another head of school. And we spent an evening together recently, and he said, I want to do that at my school. And
looks like Jessica's volunteering to organize that.
Fun girl.
But again, it's something that would not take away from the class time, and because that human formation is foundational, but something that gives them more opportunities to see this kind of things it's not antithetical. And I think some people hear, doing any sort of vocational something is antithetical to classical education. No, like, classical education is foundational.
That's right.
And beyond that, you got to go. Yeah. At some point, some people can make money on classical education. Some people can teach Latin at a college level or whatever it is, or at a high school level, and they can make a living. But there's, what do we have? 30 graduates a year, roughly. And we do not have 30 openings every year for more teachers. Right. So they have to go out and somewhere and
they are able to do that.
Yes, that's right. So true. Yeah, to the thing about having whatever it may be, farm camp or whatever, I think for me, like, obviously I'll get away with it and be fine because I chose blue collar to be like my thing. But for someone like August, that's awesome to have, he's doing computer stuff fabulous. Like, he's super smart. He needs to be doing that probably, like, not me, but, but he can also have all that farming, experience or whatever, and he can do both. That's so cool. That is the best thing.
We actually had chickens at my, much smaller, my backyard is a bit smaller than your farm, I'm sure, but we had chickens growing up.
Did you really?
Yes, we did. We had about 8 of them, and
Really?
Some
That's
of them
great.
have names that were in Latin.
Funny.
Oh my.
But it was just a project that my dad and I did together in middle school as something to bond together and get some kind of a different experience. And we built the chicken coop together, and we
And now
collected
you know
the eggs and
Yes.
all the other
That's
stuff.
great. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's a good note to end on, that from our vantage point, the materials that we've put together for students are in the hopes of forming a whole person, giving them the foundation they need, whether they're going to drive a tractor or write code or do a job that doesn't exist yet. Because for some of them, they will, right? It's not a waste of time. It's preparation for their future and really for reality. So,
If you don't mind me adding one more point,
go ahead.
I think another thing that has been absent from this discussion is that as humans, we are so much bigger than our 9-to-5 job. And I will never translate Latin, most likely, while doing computer science, at work. Could happen. I wouldn't be mad if it did. But, my education, I feel like, has prepared me for being a human so much more broadly outside of that. Like, for example, the art history classes I've taken, I can go to an art museum and not just appreciate that something is pretty, but get at the meaning the artist is trying to get at. When I engage in politics, as is, my duty as a citizen, I can do so with thousands of years of history in my mind instead of just 200 years of American history.
Sure.
And, I feel like a lot more applications like that outside of the classroom or the workforce, that these things can shape a person and drive them and inform how they live their lives.
Yeah. I'm glad you
There's a
added that.
classically educated
I know.
person.
That's right.
Bring that kind of point up.
Yeah. That's so
That's
true.
wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, thanks for giving us your afternoon, Danny and August. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you
It
guys.
was wonderful to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Always enjoy your voice as well. And I look forward to farm camp. I will be there.
Oh my gosh.
By hook or by crook, I think I'll have to be there.
I'm volunteering. Yep.
Oh, all right. Maybe this is going to happen.
Oh, well, thanks for being here, guys. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time. Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.